Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. This is the August 21st meeting of the Motor Vehicle.
Recording in progress.
I do have one sad note for you all. Mr. Dwayne Neal passed away from Bentonville on August the 6th. We found that out this week. He had been with us 9 years and 5 months. And he passed away. He had moved to a nursing home or a facility, let's say facility, assisted living. But he had pneumonia and passed away peacefully.
This is America.
So we need to, I did too, and he was a fine gentleman, always kept us in line. He really did, if y'all remember, Jimmy remembers, he always wanted to make sure there was no gray area with Mr. Dwayne, which was a good thing for us. I mean, it was, you know, he kept us in line, he really did on finances and a lot of things, so. But we will miss Dwayne and
Sure, everybody's besides you and Jimmy got to
probably not,
Probably never got to meet.
because he was always on the line.
It was always on the, yes.
Yeah, so anyway, I just wanted you all to know that. I'm sure at some point he'll be replaced, but you never could replace somebody like that. Big Republican, you did a big lot of things in the northern part of the state. Yeah, I think he had nieces and nephews maybe, but really had no family. Miss Mary would come with him when she passed away, Dwayne. I want to say kind of not went downhill, but he had to, it was very, you know, they were softening it right here. So anyway. Okay, you all were sent the meeting minutes for the June 19th, 2021 meeting, 24. I don't even go ahead of myself meeting, so I need a motion for that approval.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Michael. Sarah, second. Been moved and seconded that we approve the meeting minutes for Wednesday, June the 19th. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, the next up on our agenda is the approval of financials, the revenue and expenditures. And it's in the tab back there, and you all will see that July was a very profitable month. Renewal. We always talk about that.
Manufacturer distributor.
Right. So anything else, Daniel, we need to be aware of?
So we got two sections there. The first section, fiscal year 2025, so that's July and August of just this new fiscal year. And that's kind of where we're at right now, just showing you the total as of last week. We've actually got probably around 5,000 or so since last week that will be depositing this week. So we're actually probably a little over 310, probably 311. So, just doing a quick metric running numbers, once we're done with distributor, manufacturer, and the rep renewals, which usually is July and August,
Right.
is our biggest time. We should usually expect to have between 320 and 340, somewhere in that range, depending on how many people renew, how many people drop off and, decide they're not going to keep their license, that sort of thing. So we're pretty close. I mean, we're already pretty close to being done. Most of it, we've just got a little bit, maybe a few stragglers here and there, but so yeah, it's been really running smoothly. Really having everybody on ELP now really helped. Must be much more efficient on that. I think most of Alexis, most people she's been dealing with have been really happy with the way the renewals have worked, and especially the manufacturing distributors, it's been much easier on them. And they now have the ability to go in and affiliate all of their reps on their license profile that work for them with their license. And they have the ability, if they want to, once they do that, they can actually pay in bulk for all of their reps. So everything's actually much more streamlined now. And now that they're all starting to affiliate, they couldn't really do that last year because we had to have everybody do a new license in the new system, but now they can do that. So it's making things run much more smoothly, which is kind of what we hope. So it's been going great. And, Alexis has got the list here of all the renewals we've done so far. And there's just a very few that we have left, and I know Alexis and Margie will be running those down. Y'all don't have that in the packet, it's just something she had me, she printed me real quick. But I mean, we've got a hand, I would say, if they've got to run down, figure out, hey,
It's wonderful.
are you gonna renew? Are you gonna renew your license? What's the plan? So we're doing really well with that. The other revenue reports, we did them in two sections for you. The other revenue reports will show you the summary of the end of fiscal year 24, right? That's what that first one is there. That's gonna show you the entirety of fiscal year 24, which ended at the end of June. So after the last meeting we had, so I wanted to make sure you guys had kind of a snapshot of that. You've got the full, revenue summary there, which is the first report. Then you've got the full, summary by fund revenue, and you've got the full expenditure report by fund for fiscal year 24. And you'll notice if you look at the expenditure summary, we did not come anywhere close to going over on a lot of appropriation. So we were good for that, and we tend to not have a problem with that. And then you'll also notice, if you look at the revenue summary for 24, at the very end there, down at the bottom, when it says transfers and other cash activities, you look all the way over in that June column, you'll see that 234.51 there, that's the grants that you guys will work out. That's what that transfer is going out there to all those institutions, and we'll go over that later, but that's what that number is there.
Good report. When do they receive that?
They've already received.
They've already received
Now,
that.
I will go over it later, but they've all received it and they've all already deposited it all. Everybody got the funds, everything went through. They've all got it, and they'll have to submit a report to us later, which I'll go through. And then, of course, the other reports there after that are for this current fiscal year. And that's just the detailed Service Bureau report, revenue summary report, and expenditure report for July of this year through middle of August. So that's where we are. So that's what all those reports are. If anybody has any questions on any of it, let me know, but these are good because they can break it down for you, especially on the Service Bureau report. When you're looking at the revenue, you can see where we have the penalties and the license and permits broken out. So you can see how much we've taken in penalties and late fees on the year and in license and permit fees. And it also shows you that 1.5% special revenue fee that's deducted by BFNA out of our account. That's statutory. That's why the total at the bottom is a little different than what we actually take into consideration, that 1.5%. Yes, sir.
And then I just want to say that I really have a couple times in this. One next to the
I agree.
Well, we appreciate that, and Alexis and I, Margie and everybody, they all help pull this together, but, you know, we want to make sure you guys are aware of what's going in and what's going out. If you ever have any questions, you have access to this, you can ask me anytime. So, we're all about transparency here, so. Does anybody else have any questions about any of the revenue expenditure so far?
I need a motion for approval of the financial revenue and expenditure.
motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve that revenue and expenditure in the financials. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thanks, Scott. I think so.
I'm trying.
He can.
Can you hear us all right?
It's part of the time. I don't have very much bandwidth, I guess, because it's just coming and going.
We'll try to speak up for you a little bit. I will. Okay, director's reporting.
Yes, ma'am. So we will start out with the license activity reports that Alexis is very gracious to pull together for us, and having ELP also makes this easier on her, I think. She can kind of pull this together a little faster than what we used to have to work with. What she has in here, she's got a report showing you guys the license breakdown, revenue, and submission counts for all the applications we've received from the date of basically the last meeting to today, or to a few days ago. So that's the first page you're looking at. And then also she's got it for the month of August and the whole month of July in there as well, kind of broken out for you. But mainly what you're looking at here mostly is all of the renewals that we've gotten from distributors, distributor branches, manufacturer branches, second stage manufacturers, and all of the reps. Also, any new distributor reps and manufacturer reps we've gotten during the renewal time. This happens every year because all of these companies are pretty large companies and they have people move in and out, or they get assigned to different territories. And if they're not working in the state of Arkansas, they don't need a license here. So these are, you know, we always get new people every year that get a rep license. Any of those that you see that say representative application or distributor representative application, manufacturer representative application that don't have the word renewal in front of it, that means it's a new application, new rep license. So if you see renewal in front of any of the applications, that is someone that was already in the system and they're just renewing their license. Okay. And then you'll also see here, we've had a few in that time. I think we've had one new auto dealer, we've added one new cycle dealer, and one new RV dealer there in that time frame. I know we have a few in the queue right now that we're still working on getting documentation from to approve them. So then you'll also notice here, if you look at this memorandum, we did have one new auto dealer that we've approved in the last week. Mr. Rodan bought Lucky's in Monticello. Lucky's the Chevrolet store in Monticello. Monticello Chevrolet GMC is going to be his new store. He actually, very nice gentleman, moved here from South Carolina. He actually came to the office and met with Alexis and I. What was it, last week? Week before. Okay. Very nice guy, very young guy. Seems very excited about the opportunity, and he did tell me that he was keeping all the staff on down there at the store, so he's not really getting rid of anybody at this point. But that store's been there for a long time. Lucky's Monticello has been there for, yeah. So Mr. Lucky finally decided to sell. So they're still going to have that store down there. It's now going to be called Monticello Chevrolet. Is there another Lucky's? I don't follow it. There's another Lucky dealer, but it's in the. That is Bob. Yeah, so it's a different owner. But yeah, he's still going. He's still going.
What is rejected and denied these columns?
So if you're talking about the license, so Michael's pointing out the license report where it says rejected. So if you see one that says rejected, that means that we got an application from them in the system and they were missing either some documents or information that we need before we can approve it. So we have the ability in the system to say, we're going to reject the submission. We can go in and add notes explaining, hey, here's what we still need from you. And then it sends them an email saying, hey, your application was rejected. Here's what you need to fix, and then you can resubmit. So that's what that means. Now, the denied column, you know, I tell Margie and Alexis, you know, don't ever hit that button without me looking at it first. But that's basically a denial of an application for one reason or another. In this case, most of these are either because someone submitted the wrong application and Alexis or I had to call them and explain, hey, you need to submit this application. So we're going to have to go in and deny this, and we'll put notes in there to explain it, and you need to go submit this other application. Then we have to go in, and if they pay by credit card, we can have finance refund them for their credit card. If they pay by check, e-check, we have to, you know, go in and authorize a warrant and send them back the refund. Then they go do the other application and pay it. So that's kind of how that works. It's pretty seamless, but any denial you see there is usually because of that. Now, we did have, I think if you look at the, I don't think it's on this list, but Alexis, didn't we have to deny an auto dealer recently because the deal fell through and they ended up not going through with purchasing a dealership? So we've been having to refund, we recently refunded some money there to somebody. That was $100 for that because it didn't work out. So you know, they didn't follow through with that license application because the deal didn't work out with, was it Chevrolet dealer? I think it's
Yeah.
Chevrolet.
Currently a different dealership.
Yeah, they're gonna be trying to purchase a different dealership now, but, so that happens every so often, and you just have to go in and deny it and refund them their money. We have a report, Alexis, the refund report, in a spreadsheet so that we don't lose track of all this, but that's what that means. Does anybody else have any questions about any of the columns on the sheet? Scott, Clay, you guys understand that okay? That is the
Good.
Thank you. That's the license activity reports. We've already kind of gone over the revenue and expenditure reports. So investigation summary. So you can keep going. Alicia, there you go. That's what we're on, that page. This one. So the investigation summary here for Margie and John. You guys have both their reports here. Now, this is just for the last 2 months, since we've had the last meeting. Now,
Yeah.
I will,
Yes.
He answered your question.
I will note that, Margie, has a little bit less on here than John this time, but a lot of that is simply due to the fact that Margie was on vacation for like a week and a day in August. Her boss let her go on vacation, so I guess we can forgive some. But, they've been working really hard, as you'll see later. A lot of this, unlicensed dealer number you see here, on both of their spreadsheet or both of their reports, you notice, John has 15, Margie has 16. Well, a big bulk of that is going to be with Tractor Supply that we're going to address later. So that's where a lot of that is coming from. But otherwise, you'll see we are still working advertising issues, still have some unlicensed product and some paperwork and title issues that they're dealing with on their reports. Does anybody have questions about anything from their reports? That brings us to the consumer assistance report. Alicia, if you'll scroll down, there you go. We're on that report now. Thank you. So our formal complaint report here, we are now up to 20 formal complaints, I believe. Have we added any since we printed this, Margie? I think we're 20.
I think it's.
Okay, so we've added a couple in the last week. Okay. So we are well on our way, numbers wise, to get to that 30 complaint threshold, which is kind of, you know, in a normal standard year, we usually have around 30, if not more, formal complaints if you go from January to December. So we're well on our way to kind of a normal complaint year at this point. If you look at the reports, there's a variance of things we're dealing with. Margie and John have been doing a really good job getting things closed out. We actually have several on here. We had to take the ad hoc. And one of those formal ones that we took the ad hoc, we're going to be dealing with today. Actually, 2 of them, Tractor Supply and Tamweb, we're going to be dealing with today later on. We also have a couple complaint issues that Joy and I and Michael dealt with at ad hoc. You'll see on here Mr. Claude Wells and James Brady that we just went ahead and closed out at the ad hoc level because we did not feel like those merited the full commission attention with what the issues were there. So that's the formal report. We're moving right along with those, and like I said, just based on where we're at currently, 21 or 22, we will definitely have 30 plus formal complaints by the end of the year. We might even get to 40 at this rate. So, we're kind of back to standard operating procedure. And then you scroll over to the next page, which is the non-formal list. If you'll scroll on down, Alicia, it's that next list. Yeah, there we go. That's the list we're on, the non-formal list. So non-formals, because of all of the individual site visit location complaints that Margie and John had to undertake for a few other dealers and mainly Tractor Supply, we are now up to 75, maybe even 76, 77 with the ones we've had this week. 78, so we're actually up to 78, this was printed last week, so we're actually up to 78 non-formal complaints on the year so far. So non-formal wise, we're looking at definitely being over 100, we'll probably be somewhere in the range of 120, I would guess, by the time the year's out on those, and that is, again, fairly standard for a normal year. If you go back and look at historical references for our non-formal complaints, go back and look at more standard years. We're usually, somewhere between 120 and 140 non-formal complaints that the commission works on. So we're getting back to our standard operating procedures with them as well. A lot of these you'll see on there that have been closed out, the Tractor Supply ones that have been closed out. Those are all individual reference locations that either Margie or John have visited. And we'll kind of go over that report later. All of those Tractor Supply non-formals have been closed out, and that's been converted to a formal investigation that you saw on the previous list. So that's why they've all been closed out. You'll also notice that we continue to deal with title issues on these non-formal complaints. And we've had a few dealer visits, dealer issues we've had to work out. John just completed a dealer site visit in Mountain Home yesterday to, what's the store, Hirsch Feed and Farm?
Hirsch Feed and Farms.
Hirsch Feed and Farm Supply, and Mountain Home has submitted an application in the last week or so to be a new franchise cycle dealer to sell Bad Boy UTVs. So since we've never licensed that location before, I had John do a site visit because we don't want to run into an issue where we just license somebody without actually inspecting the location to make sure they're in compliance with Rule 4, which goes into a complaint we'll talk about later. But John did a visit yesterday there, and that, I don't even think they're on the list yet because we just added them, but we've already worked through that and he confirmed that they have everything they need. So we're going to do a approve the license for them here pretty shortly, probably today. But pretty big store, big feed and farm supply store. John said it's like walking into almost like a Lowe's, right?
It's a huge place. They've got a location, Mount Home, one in West Plains, Missouri, and one up in Thayer, Missouri. And they carry everything.
But yeah, Bad Boy is really venturing out into the UTV space now. I think we've got, how many Bad Boy dealers we have? We get close to 10, right? I want to say, or 8 to 10 maybe, total, 11. So they're really venturing out into the UTV space. They're continuing to add more dealers. So I fully anticipate we will continue to see new Bad Boy dealers pop up, people that want to add Bad Boy UTVs. I know we have a lot of stores that already carry Bad Boy mowers and tractors and stuff like that. So I anticipate we'll continue to get more of those applications. The job will have to do more site visits in northern Arkansas, in southern central Arkansas, largely have to do site visits to make sure that they actually have the facility to be able to do service work. That's the main problem we see with some of these smaller stores sometimes. The other ones you see on here, we've got a couple licensing issues we're still dealing with and trying to work out with the dealers. Mr. Dave Adams is not renewed his license yet. He and I have had a conversation. I am hopeful he will do that soon, and that will be one that we will probably have to address at a later meeting, because my understanding from him is he wants to surrender his license. But I kind of told him that we need you to renew your license first because you still have product and you had it for this whole year. So I need you to at least renew your license before we're going to entertain you surrendering your license appropriately and effectively. So yeah, I mean, a variance of things Margie and John are dealing with. They're still doing a really good job of getting on these things and getting them closed out as fast as possible. I see a couple on here that Margie's still going to have to do a couple of dealer visits. I know she's got on her list, one in Conway and one in, I think, Searcy, Margie. To check out a few things for people that are unlicensed currently, and maybe we may need to talk to them about getting a license. Those issues. Does anybody have any questions about anything on the?
Any of these, I should know the answer to these Tractor Supplies. Are they owned individually for a franchise, or are they owned by a conglomerate?
They are owned by a conglomerate, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
I was thinking we said that, but.
Okay. Yes, they're all.
That's who we have to do.
Because that's who handles their licensing for the Mountain Home Store, the relicense.
Okay.
So it's,
Honestly, I'm the one kind of that was Whitehall. Yeah, they don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see if they had any private.
well, we're gonna go all into that here.
I do that.
Yes, they are corporately.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions about any of the complaints? So the investigators will report me.
We have a ad review list too.
Yes, the ad review list, I don't think we've had any new ones since the last meeting, so we're still at 9 at this point. That is the
That's a
current,
good thing.
that is the current ad review list, so we haven't had any new ad reviews since the last June. Any other questions on the consumer assistance complaint report? Okay. Sure, I think that moves us to.
Okay, anybody? Very good, okay. Legal counsel, Michael?
Louisa, will you scroll down to the? There you go, right there. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So the only item I have for the legal report is an update on the Bradford Marine market area dispute.
Go to your legal briefing, excuse me.
Oh, yes, yes.
It's in there, so.
Yes.
I just wanted them to know that.
Yes.
And this was not a surprise at all. So as you know, we have, or you have as a commission, 180 days to hold a hearing from the time of a market area dispute filed, unless the parties both mutually agree to waive that 180 days. Well, that's exactly what they did. And I think they did that in response to the commission setting up a hearing date. So as you can see in the letter, that they both jointly waived the 180-day requirement. And they said that if the meeting is, or hearing is going to be necessary, that they would ask for it to be sometime in the early part of the calendar year. Where that puts the commission and staff in terms of actually holding a hearing, you basically have a handful of choices. You can either say, yeah, that sounds good, and we'll set a hearing for sometime in early 2025. If you think that a hearing date needs to be scheduled for another time, you can do that. Also, if you want to take no action and just kind of see how things play out before setting a new hearing date, you can do that too. It's totally within the control of the commission to decide when you're going to hold your hearings. So I think the parties have jointly said kind of what their preference would be, but that's just something for you to think about in terms of next steps. Just when if it all set a hearing date.
Do we currently have one set? I believe we set one at one time, but it's still on calendar.
We set one for July, and that's what they were responding to.
So it came to
With this letter, yeah, so they both agreed basically, hey, we waived the 180-day hearing requirement, and Michael sent an email back saying, okay, well, we're not gonna have the hearing in July, and that's why I told you guys and let you know they were currently. And so really, it's at this point, Michael's followed up with them a few times. They did send us an email in July, basically saying that at some point, I think in the middle of July, they were gonna meet and confer to try to resolve it or work out what they wanted to do about a revised schedule, and we hadn't heard anything from them. And as Michael knows, I mean, classic attorney tactic is delay. So, I mean, it's kind of one of those things that I think you guys just need to decide. What do you want to do? What do you want the communication back with them to be? And Michael and I can follow up from there, but both sides have legal counsel, so everything is communicated through the legal counsel at this point.
Yeah, and as Daniel kind of alluded to, these things tend to be resolved whenever the clock is running. So, just as whenever we set the hearing date, that kind of got them to respond with a request for a continuance and a waiver. I think setting another date will kind of put them on the clock and help them have the incentive they need to resolve this without a hearing.
Because again, I think Michael's impression is the same. My impression throughout this process has been, for both sides. I don't get the sense they want to have a hearing about this. I just don't. So I think they're trying to work it out, but at the same time, if we don't do anything for an extended period, I mean, they're just gonna delay, drag it out, just take their sweet time. We'll have this complaint issue on the books. So, you know, I think by resetting the hearing date, or at least proposing even a resetting of the date, I know this, you know, this letter to me reads like, they're saying, with the anticipation that a hearing, if necessary, would take place in early 2025. They didn't put a specific date on it. They just said early 2025. That just tells me that they're just pushing it out and hoping they get it resolved and not really worried about it. So,
Well, I think it also shows they don't have a very specific opinion on when the hearing date occurs too, so. You know, I just read this as just like, you know, hey, we need more than 180 days and here's what our preference is. I think they all recognize that at the commission, y'all set the dates and all that stuff, so it's just basically what y'all want to do.
I think I would agree, probably should set a date,
I think that-
just to keep it moving along. Do we have a preference of when that should be? Do we wait till we file 2025 for their request, or do we set it small?
I can't
Push it along.
I can't speak for staff, but I mean, just from my side of the table, I don't have any preference at all, just because, in terms of the legwork that, the staff or the commission would have to do in presenting these cases, next to nothing. This is basically going to be, if the hearing happens, both of these sides presenting their case to the commission. So for us, it's really purely administrative. Whatever y'all want to hear, we can have the hearing, we can get it together. So it's really just what works for y'all.
Should we set it for January 2025 or with a
yeah. And I think that, yeah, I think that would be fair, just because, you know,
Yeah.
we're always gonna have a meeting in January, because we have to
Yeah.
approve stuff for the start of the new year anyway. So we could have it coincide with the January meeting date. And that gives them the rest of this year to figure it out. That gives them plenty of time next year or something.
We need to make sure.
We do, and that's early 25 one day. It is early 2025, yeah.
So Michael, do you make that a motion?
I would make a motion that we that we reset this hearing date, our January, whatever date our January 25 meeting is, and notify the parties that, you know, we expect a resolution by
Second from Jimmy or somebody?
Joseph, yeah.
Thank you. Did you get that, everybody? But it's been moved and seconded that we, hold it.
I got it.
Got it?
Yep.
January, I don't know the date, 22nd,
Third Wednesday.
That'd be it.
January 22nd, 2025. Any discussion? All those. in favor
Sounds
say
good to me.
All right. Motion carried.
Yeah, that's true.
Perfect.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, that concludes my report.
That moves us on to the action and discussion items of the ad hoc referrals, basically. So,
Turn the page.
yeah, if you'll turn to the action discussion section first. So that's that, yeah, Felicia, just start there. So before we go into the investigation reports from my investigators on this, I attached the copy of Rule 2, Rule 4, and Rule 5 for you guys to reference here, because it can be helpful here in a minute when we start getting into these investigations for you to have this. I've learned my lesson on this in the past, so they make sure we have a copy of it.
I'm gonna hold on. It's probably
Oh.
one that we probably use a lot.
Yes.
So I'm glad that we have. that.
So you've got Rule 2, which is our hearing provisions, okay? That's just kind of how that process works and explains why we have to have a hearing to terminate somebody's license if we want to do that or anything else. Rule 4 is our facility requirements rule that goes over all the requirements for a new franchise dealer in the state in terms of the requirements you have to meet to be licensed. And then Rule 5 is what we call our limitations of sales of new motor vehicles. And this is where it gets into specialty vehicles and what we define as the commission as a specialty vehicle that is exempt from regulation by the commission. So that's all those motor vehicles that we don't regulate, that we don't license, that you don't have to have a license to sell. They're defined in this rule. And only in this rule, okay? And we also define specialty vehicles as well in our definition section, which is the 23-112-103, which I've also attached for you. This is going to come in later. We define specialty vehicles here. We also define motor vehicle, and we define low speed vehicle, which is going to be important as well. Okay. As a point of reference. So that's all in our statute. It's all defined in the statute. And then also I've attached 23-112-301 for your reference. This is the license required section of the statute. And this lays out basically any type of business you're engaging in that requires a license from the commission, essentially. The dealer, distributor, manufacturer, that's where that's laid out. And then also I've attached 23-112-308. This is the section that goes over all of those, what we would consider to be unlawful actions that would justify a reason for you to deny, revoke, or suspend the license, basically. This is the statute section that lays all of that conduct out to you, okay? So that's going to be important later as well on one of these, but it's also important for really any license issue, any complaint issue you're looking at. You know, this is the statute section that lays out all of these actions that the commission considers to be, you know, violation, something that's worthy of your attention, something that we consider to be pretty egregious for any issue now. There's also another statute that goes into, you know, you guys have the ability to fine somebody as opposed to, you know, suspending or revoking their license as well. That's a separate issue. But regardless, those things, that statute works in conjunction with this, because this is the statute that lays out all of the conduct that you consider to be, you know, a problem, essentially.
Virginia, can we keep these in our book all the time?
Yes, ma'am.
Because we used to have a book that was available years ago, and we were bidding and bumbling. This is really an awesome thing done here because we sometimes we'll flip through here and go, well, and so I think it would behoove us to always have these in our book.
That's not a problem at all.
Because this is great to, for us, because there are times that we do have to look.
Yeah.
Or we'll ask you, hey, what, you know,
Yeah.
it's easier for us to see that.
Yeah, I know, especially the obscure statute sections in the rules.
Oh, yeah, that look is like cross.
We are happy to do that, and I'll tell you what, before the next meeting, I'll even have a few more here.
Okay, yeah.
That I think might be relevant, just because you know, so we.
If you want to take someone that you
I
have.
was gonna ask you.
now, I'll go ahead and add additional.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Add-
Okay,
Yeah.
that'd be great, if you don't mind.
we have-
Thank you.
But that way, I want to make sure you guys had that, so we're not, you know, you're not lost when we go into these investigations, so. All right, that brings us to our first item on the agenda, investigation, which is Mr. Tam Corporation. This is a formal complaint. Elysia, if you'll scroll down a little bit past that. There we go. That's where we're at. Thank you. This is the issue, the complaint issue we discussed at the last meeting. Mr. Tam, he had a manufacturer license. He has not renewed it. All of this last year, he was supposed to renew last year. He didn't. This year, we have not been able to effectively communicate with him to get him to do that. And as you will see when Marty and John give their report, I don't anticipate that he will. I don't think he has any interest in it. And we'll, the way we're going to work through this is essentially what we have here is a manufacturer that has not renewed his license, is not appear to have any intention of renewing his license. And from what we can tell, as John and Marty will go into in a minute with their report, he doesn't even appear to be really even operating or doing business here in the state. So I'll follow up with the closing later, and there may be some questions for me and Michael on motion for this. But essentially, I'm gonna be asking you to to have a motion for a hearing with Mr. Tatum to consider terminating this license. But that'll be at the end. I'm gonna let Margie and John go over their report from last time, because as you remember from last time, all of you, including Ms. Joy, wanted an investigation, a full investigation to be done. So they've done a full investigation, and they have visited Russellville twice since the last meeting, so they've got plenty to report to you. All of the information that's included here is information from last time to this point on, and I'll let them explain and kind of go over that so it makes sense to you. But Margie and John.
Okay. We went to Russellville to visit this, where he claimed, if you look in the, I want to, his initial application, go behind the report, the investigation report, about photo page. He, initially applied as a manufacturer in, 2022, I believe.
That's good.
He, he applied and he was given a manufacturer license at that time. And since then, he has not renewed, but he listed on, and I made a copy of everything that was on that initial application, of everything he sells, which is his products. And he did not renew, so of course, started in November the 7th, when I got the list of all the manufacturing distributors to follow up with them. Well, when I got a hold of Mr. Tatum, he said that, oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot, I will remove immediately. So this was November the 7th, 23rd. And then he and I had a series of emails and phone calls, which are also noted in the file. And they're listed as exhibits. Exhibit C. And then he talked with Alexis during this time, what, 6 months, 5 months? Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to do that. I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna leave it. And then we explained to him about his late fees. He wanted to know if we could work out a payment plan for him, and I said, no, you have to pay it all up front. And then he said, well, I'll get on it and I'll start working on my renewal. Which he never did. And then he turned around and said, well, I'm not gonna be renewing because Ricky Power Sports has Camden products. I'll just let them sell them. I said, they cannot sell them, or distributor. And I said, they can't be your distributor unless you get your manufacturer license. And he said, well, I don't understand why. You don't need it. Pretty much, we don't need them in the equation, but we did. And Alexis and I both explained that to him. So John and I decided to do a site visit.
Margie,
Yes.
can you go over the Secretary of State file in there? What's the line that's in there? And that's important.
Yes.
Please just scroll to the next page. That next one after that. There we go.
Yes. I pulled up on the Secretary of State's page where Kevin Tam had listed his business in Russellville at 1300 South Elmira Avenue. That's where he registered with the Secretary of State's office as his business location.
Then you move to.
That he moved to from, I think, Virginia, because he said he was in Arkansas. And that's where his business was located. So John and I went out to visit that location. And I went inside the building. And it says that
That is the pictures in the next
Yes.
page. That is that location. That's what-
this location, as you see on the awning, is 1300 South Elmira. I went there, and you only see the one vehicle, but in the parking lot, there were like, what, 6 or 7 vehicles. So I walked up to the door, and John was like, well, if I'm not out, he said, you're not out 5 minutes, I'm coming in. I said, okay. So I walk into the building. There's not a soul in this building. It's completely emptied out. They have desks pulled up to the door of each office. And it looks like they're cleaning the office. There's no one there, and I was like, hello?
I mean, the door was open, it wasn't
No,
locked.
it was not, and they have like a, when you first walk in, it's like a service area.
John, don't ever let her walk in.
Well, we're not, there's only someone there,
I'm
and,
kidding you.
you know, and it said expedited faster services, so I was assuming it was a legitimate business. It was
Yeah.
okay.
Right.
So I walked through the building, nobody's there, and then I walked all the way to the back of the building, which is like a third of it is nothing but it's like a workplace where they're doing shop things, just like a shop. There was nothing in the shop but a few pallets, a crate, which you could see through the bunch of rags.
Were there any electric scooters there?
No, there was nothing there other than crates and the pallets and a forklift. The only thing that was in that building. And so I walked back out and I was like, hello, nothing. No one said a word, no one, you know. So I walked out and told John, there's nothing in there but empty offices.
Yeah.
And the shop was completely empty, other than the forklift and a couple of, like I said, pallets and boxes. So then I went to, we went and visited with Nate Saul.
Let's let John kind
Oh, yeah.
of recount the issue with Nate Saul. That gets us into the next page here with Ms. Saul's email there. The reason we have this email is because Margie and John went and visited with Nate. Veronica is Nate's wife, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that email and then the corresponding invoices are from Mr. Saul after that, okay? And John, I'll let you explain.
Right, Mr. Saul had moved, he has a used motor vehicle business in Russellville. He moved from his original location out on Arkansas Avenue, which is Highway 7. We went by to see if there were any products in his old location. There was a few cycles and other things in there, but the business was locked. We went on to talk to Mr. Saul out on Arkansas Avenue, and he gave us Kevin Tam's new address, which is over on Marina Road, like you're probably familiar with that. We talked to Mr. Saul, and he basically told us that he had 50 some odd units, products that he had purchased from Kevin Tam that he was basically stuck with since Kevin didn't have a license anymore. He couldn't sell these products. And he had purchased batteries, electric batteries and everything for them. And that in a nutshell, he was out close to $100+ grand.
Yeah.
With Mr. Tam.
And you notice in John's, what John's talking about the batteries, if you notice in that email there, Veronica even confirms in writing that they were never even provided the batteries.
Right.
For the units they bought. So they're basically worthless. Can't have an electric scooter without battery.
So you can see from the invoices here that Mr. Saul has got a substantial investment in these products. Now he's stuck with it, can't get rid of them. And according to Mr. Saul, he had them in storage at his home. Margie and I went out there to the area where he lives. It's out there by Nuclear One, right? You know, talked about. There's a bunch of big shop buildings out there, so we couldn't get any access to any of those. Could be in any of those. So he gave us Kevin Tam's new address, which is over there in an apartment on Marina Road. Margie and I went there, knocked on the door, and made contact with Mr. Tam's wife. And we explained why we were there. And from my experience in law enforcement, she was very evasive. She really didn't want to have anything to do with any of it. She wouldn't accept the paperwork that Margie had with us to present to him, and she wouldn't accept it. So we were able to get the address, talk to her for a few minutes, asked her to have him contact us. She had no idea where he was. So after talking to Mr. Saul again, Margie and I went back and talked to him. The address on Elmira Drive actually belonged to him. He was the owner of the building. He sold that building. So that would be Mr. Saul. He sold the building, and he was using that particular building as a workshop for his used car business. Well, his new building has adequate facilities there for that. So he sold that building and moved his entire operation over on Arkansas Avenue. And, he owns that particular location there on Arkansas Avenue, but, that's where Kevin Tam listed his address as his business. Well, obviously there's nothing there. Now the building has been sold, so it is obvious that he no longer has an office space there for us.
If you notice on, exhibit G, if you flip through there, it's after the invoices from Zelonta. I did pull it up on AR County data for your viewing that shows that property that Kevin Tam listed as his place of business did indeed sell. And it does belong to Expedited Passenger Services. They bought it from Kevin, from Nate.
That's what the N and B property.
Yeah. N and B is for Navy bond.
So Mr. Saul owns quite a bit of property in the Russellville area. He's been there practically his whole life. We pressed him a little bit on what his intentions were with Mr. Tam, since he's got a sizable investment in it, and he was never really clear on what he was gonna do, whether he was gonna take any civil actions, or anything like that. So he's basically stuck with $100,000 plus investment in these products and can't do anything with it.
Well, I think your impression that you told me from your multiple conversations face to face with Mr. Saul is that he would more than likely, when it comes time to renew this coming year, maybe just surrender his license, because he's a used car dealer and that's where he does most of his business anyway. He just, it's kind of to the point where he feels like it's not really worth it for him to continue. So that's a possibility for him too. So.
And also, just to know, when we went the first time to see Saul, he said he hadn't seen Kevin whatsoever. When we went back to see him the second time, when we went to the apartment and everything, he said, "Oh yeah, he calls me the Woody." And I'm like, well, that's not what he said it was. But he did say Kevin did give him what, $100 for a trailer he bought? Yeah, he bought like a little transport trailer, and we gave him some money for that. I said, he didn't give you any money for the, electric scooter for batteries, and he said no.
And Mr. Tam had rented a residential property from him, caused quite a bit of damage to that property. And he just didn't seem interested, Mr. Saul didn't seem interested in pursuing any civil actions against Mr. Tam for the damage to the property. And with that being said, just my years in law enforcement, just some things are just not adding.
So,
I mean, a sizable investment like that, I don't know about y'all, but if I had $100,000 invested in anything and somebody wasn't upholding their end of the bargain, I'm sure that all of us sitting here at this table would want a very good explanation as to why things were or were not happening. And so there's more to the story.
Yeah, I never know, I mean, looked at them.
So if I can, so what I'm hearing from staff is that y'all have conducted your investigation and you think there is enough evidence to warrant the commission to have a hearing to see if some violations were committed or some action to be taken.
that is where we're at. Yes. I think there are multiple violations here, and that's why I have Rule 2 in here for you guys. This explains it very clearly for you in terms of, before revoking or suspending any license issued by the commission, pursuant to ACA 43-112-101, commission shall hold a hearing to determine whether sufficient grounds exist in the provisions of the act on which to base such revocation or suspension. So we have to have a hearing if we want to consider violations and potentially terminate.
Do we need like a motion? Do we need a motion here?
We do, we need, yes.
Motion, we will involve. And do what we have to do, so, nothing sound right about it.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, wait a minute.
On the motion, so, we probably will want to make a motion to have a hearing at the October meeting. That would be our next meeting, and we have to give 30 days notice to Mr. Tam. So he probably want to,
Even though he doesn't have a license,
We don't have a license.
how can we suspend or revoke? a
Yeah,
license?
because there's nothing we can do about that. We doesn't have one.
He's able to, if he was to fill out a renewal application and pay his fees and get everything he's done.
Right.
It would go from, am I correct, it would go from inactive back to active status.
Correct.
right?
So you're gonna give
but he
him,
has an inactive license. But he hasn't surrendered, so he can technically still renew it. He pays all the late fees and the license fees.
What other legal options does the commission of the state have? Go after somebody that basically, I mean, I think he's, at this point, if he was gonna redo it, I think he'd already do it. So I think he has no intention to redo it.
Right.
Yeah, so, the process set out in section 308 is the process available to the commission. It's in line with the Arkansas Administrative Procedure Act that says, if you're gonna take an adverse action against the licensee, you gotta have a hearing, you gotta give them notice and opportunity to attend the hearing,
Even though it's an act.
even though it's an act.
I think the best way to put it is taking the action, having the hearing, and you guys decide to revoke his license. That allows the commission, and Michael and I, to enter an order, which basically lays out his license is terminated, and in order for him to come back and get another license, I think we can, basically say something over there, he's gonna have to come back to the commission and, explain why he should be granted another license after this.
And actually, this is neither here nor there, I actually didn't even think about this, but I had a hearing Friday in this very room with a very similar circumstance where you have someone who has not renewed, but they technically still have a license, but it's just in this inactive kind of status that they could bring it back up and practice again, and have the license again. But in order to take any type of more permanent action or official action, you gotta follow the APA.
You gotta deal with the license.
Yeah, you gotta deal with the license.
Whether it's inactive. Active.
It's, yeah, and like I said, it's gotta be on record, you gotta have the evidence, you gotta enter in orders to which to.
So my motion does thing.
No, I just wanted to make, in the motion, we need to say,
Only thing I need to add is gonna be.
Yeah, that'd be good, that'd be good.
And I'll second that.
it's been moved and seconded that the Arkansas Motor Vehicle Commission hold a hearing and invite Mr. Kevin Payne to the hearing. What is that?
That's what I can't believe.
Oh, okay.
That third Wednesday is October 23rd.
October
And I'm
23rd.
assuming that, let's assume that we don't, that the client doesn't show up and we just roll on. Still,
Yeah, we would proceed with that.
just administratively.
because I fully expect him not to show up.
And, John and I want to add this, if he does renew, say he shows up with a hearing and he decides to renew, what was it he owed? Like $10,000 plus in late fees. And we none of it.
Motion second. Will be on the floor. Liz? Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
I don't think we can hear Clay.
I can hear you.
All right, do you say aye, Clay? We didn't hear it.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Blake.
Unanimously approved.
Thank you very much. Michael and I will work on that.
That's just for the life.
I know.
And that's not without a resolution.
I'm sure you have. Okay. Moving onward, forward, do you have anything else? We have more. Yeah.
So that brings us to the second one on the list there, Mr. Marlon Wells, B. Cranky of Sherwood. A failure to deliver a title issue. Basically, I'm gonna let Margie present this one really quickly, but, and I'll kind of bring it back around, but this the reason the ad hoc voted to bring this to the commission's attention, Michael and I know have discussed this in ad hoc, is because number one, this is kind of an egregious issue where, you know, Crane did not provide this man a title for, what was it, Margie, a year and a half?
Yes,
And that caused him some adverse harm, which you've seen if you look through the documents, with his phone. But this is kind of an issue that we have seen, and I'll let Margie go over this, but if you go to the very back of the packet section of this, I have Margie pull all of the complaints over the last basically year and a half against Crane dealership over just non-delivery of title issues. And, you know, that's the main reason for us kind of reviewing this complaint issue today, is because this has just become a consistent theme and pattern of Crane dealerships where we've had, you know, consistent issues with them delivering title in a reasonable timely manner, which is what our statute says. It's actually even in that 23-112-308 section there. That's the part of our statute that talks about, I'll find it here. Hold on. I believe it is number section. Okay, section 26 of 23-112-308, which is the statute we were referencing earlier. Failure of a dealer to submit or deliver a certificate of title or manufacturer's certificate of origin within a reasonable period of time. Okay, so that's directly addressed in their statute. So Margie, you want to kind of give a brief overview of Mr. Wells' complaint, just so everybody is clear on what occurred there, and also just your discussion with Mr. Wells. He understands that, you know, we can't force the dealer to pay his interest, even though he requested that.
Mr. Wells had filed a complaint about non-delivery of the title because at the naval level, this is some of the statements that they provided to him. His interest rate went from a business loan with his business to a personal loan because the title had not been received. And that was in his contract, that it had to be delivered to the credit union within a reasonable amount of time. And he had stated that he wanted to know where the title was. And when I did this complaint, he did it on, it's a formal formal complaint. I sent it to Chandler Rackley of Crane. And like I said, I'm just gonna make it brief. He stated that we're gonna get the title to, which they did give him, they did get the title to him. He filed this complaint, April, and they got it to him, I believe, in June, May or June.
After we got
involved, they did send the title. And then Mr. Wells had provided a statement from the credit union that's in this packet that states that, there it is, Naval Credit Union, that states that his promissory note was not fulfilled for his requirements with the credit union. And that's the reason it went from a business loan to a private. Well, he did a spreadsheet. If you see the excess interest fees, he had come up with $1,722.30. He wanted Crane to pay the difference of the interest. And then they came back, Crane did, and said in an email to me, this was a cash, basically, he paid us, we didn't finance it for him, so we're not going to be responsible for his interest rates. And then I called Mr. Wells and explained this to him. He was not happy. And Daniel had to go over and explain to him, even if we do take this to ad, he wanted to go back. He sent me an email, Mr. Wells did. I want y'all to review it. And I explained to him, even if it goes to ad hoc, even if there is money involved, he will not get that money. It will go to the commission. And I'm not saying there would be money, but if there was money, and he said he understood, that he's okay with that. He just wants these people for us to know they did them wrong and that the commission do something about it.
And the important point on this complaint is to note, just if you look at the bill of sale, they sold this vehicle to Mr. Wells December 23rd, 2022. He didn't get the title until May of 2022. So that's the important.
Yeah, that was no fault of his.
But in a broader sense, broader thing, the reason that, ad hoc voted to bring this before you guys is it's a serious issue, obviously, but beyond that, the reason I had Margie show you guys this train title complaints over the last year or so is to show that this is a recurring issue with them. And so I felt like it's something to bring in front of you, the ad hoc meeting. Joy and I felt like we wanted to kind of present this to you and kind of discuss and see if maybe this is something where the commission needs to. Maybe this is something the commission needs to consider. We've done this in the past where we send out kind of an advisory letter to Crane Corporate or any dealer that's having these recurring issues to kind of remind them of what the statute says and that we've seen this issue over time with all these complaints. Remind them of kind of what the responsibility is. I don't know what that looks like. That's something you guys can discuss and decide if you want to do it or not, but I feel like it's kind of reached a level where we need to at least send a notice letter or something that let them know this is a problem that we're seeing at Crane dealerships specifically, because we don't have any other dealerships on our complaint list that show up nearly this many times on just title issues. It's just not. So it's clearly a Crane issue, and I don't know exactly what it is. It's called, but it's clearly an issue. So
Just to reiterate, it only took 48 hours from when he sent in the complaint to when he got the notification that the paperwork had been received. His title had been received for them to send it, only 48 hours.
So they're on top of it.
After we got.
Yeah.
Margie called him on the 30th, and on the 2nd of May, is when he received correspondence saying that his title had been received.
What did you say the actual, law was?
Oh, 23-112-308, it's in that last section that I printed for you guys. In the action discussion section there, at the very front. So it's gonna be section 26, all the way down at the bottom.
Got it. Thank you.
That is the section within the ABC Act that addresses title issues. There is a separate section within, I think, transportation code or somewhere that also,
Reasonable time.
yeah. So
December 2022.
I know, I agree with that.
I know Michael and Scott and Clay and Mike Johnson here understand that the new law for registration is 60 days.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it says all of it.
You might need to put sticks on the,
Well, that's
eventually down
Yeah.
the line.
but I don't think anybody would say that a reasonable period of time.
No, I agree.
is a 5 or 6 year.
I agree.
So,
Well, the number of complaints he's got from 23 to 24, it bounces all over his dealerships throughout the state.
It's all the state.
Don't they handle all the time of work? Corporate office. Yeah. It's all centralized.
sure. It's go ahead and open it up for discussion on this, but I wanted to present it to you and we can discuss what you guys' ideas are for addressing that. But I feel like it's kind of reached a point where
We'll keep continuing to get these complaints if we don't at least, I think, give them a letter of. This is what's happening.
What do you do in a case like this? How do you
Well, we send them a
nudge
letter
them
first,
to
show them
do a
this.
better job?
That's a great question, because, you never know until you actually do it, how effective, right, your strategy is. So it is sending them a letter going to be effective. I don't know, but it sounds like a great place to start because
Yeah.
at the very least, it takes kind of a progressive approach instead of instead of just letting it slide, we're going full bore, you know, let's take this extremely aggressive approach. Let's try to get something right, saying, hey, here's what we're seeing
We've seen a number of
in your facility.
complaints.
Yeah, and you know, basically saying like, you know, basically this is concerning to us, you know. Could you please open up a conversation with us about how you're going with these guys?
Forward push.
Like,
I think we're full.
Can you guys hear me?
Are you having a good cruise? Me too.
Can you-
Creation.
That's nine.
Unfortunately, I'm gonna get it. Well, that's okay.
say something?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I just was gonna ask if anybody had been to their corporate office to visit with them. You know, just from a dealer's perspective, you know, I think the letter would be definitely I don't know, a tactic, but if you were to send somebody to visit with them, I think that might actually go further. I mean, we're all running into issues, and the amount of business that Crane does, they're gonna have just, you know, in volume that many more issues. But you know, titles have consistently been even more and more of a problem over the last few years since COVID. And, you know, I just think that it might be worth somebody's time to just go visit with them.
Right, thank you.
So get back on. Oh, shoot.
Oh, 6.
Discussion.
Thank you. Nothing previous year.
Doesn't happen.
I mean, that's
I
not,
think
that's
we
not.
need to nip this, proceed
We
one.
got dealer issues here, and we definitely have.
Yeah. Right.
I feel like I think consumers want to get hurt.
Is it fair to send John Margie to visit with them in person or hand a letter? Know that they're on the radar?
Again, I think that's up to you guys, in terms of what's fair, I'll do whatever you want to do, it doesn't matter, okay.
I think there's definitely something to be said for that, because then what you could do in addition is, you know, not only have that conversation, but follow up with a letter and say, hey, thank you. Here's what we discussed in our conversation, and here's what we do, like, we appreciate your time. Please contact us in a certain amount of however much time to say, you know, that.
Like a follow-up.
Yeah, a follow-up letter, and just say like, just kind of more like, hey, we talked, this is what we all agreed on, you know.
I will say that I think Marty and John have done a really good job, and of course, I know, I talked.
Here's going to go around.
They've done a good job of establishing pretty good rapport with Chandler, so they could probably, I mean, Chandler, Rackley is the one at the corporate office that is kind of in charge of this kind of stuff, in my understanding, at this point. So I'm sure that John and Marty could set up a meeting again. I'm sure you'd be, just kind of discuss some of the issues. And then we could, yes, send a follow-up letter after that, talking about, like Michael suggested, hey, here's what we discussed. You know, just so they realize it's on the emissions right. Just so they
Right,
understand
that's
that.
what I mean, let it know that it was discussed and.
I think it would be beneficial for both Margie and I to go
Okay.
since both Crane is in both of our areas up
Sure.
there. And I think a lot of these complaints have come from my area.
Yes.
And, a lot of
Hey,
these-
guys.
A lot of these.
Hey, guys,
consumers-
I hate to interrupt, but I'm about to lose signal. I think
Okay.
what Clay was suggesting, I think you hand deliver a letter to their corporate office.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, I make a motion that we let Margie and John pay a visit. Followed up with the letter like Michael talked about. This is what we discussed and, you know, could we get a reply, plan of action on your part? And that's what the letter comes back as.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that way it's all fair.
I vote yes, and I'm gonna have to sign off now.
Thank you.
I'm losing signal.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay.
I'd say,
Been moved and seconded that we pay, that John and Margie pay a visit to Crane Corporate. Visit with them about the problem we're having and follow up with a plan of action from them. I think we're discussing,
And we will present that at the next.
and we will present it at the next meeting. I like that. All in favor, say aye. All those opposed,
one other follow-up question. Are we gonna present that back to this consumer? Are we gonna communicate back to the
yeah, we'll
consumer that?
probably tell him that we.
Yeah. Okay, that the motor commission.
That's goodwill.
We will, either I or Mark will call it. Explain to them what the commission decided. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. That gets us to the last one on the ad hoc list, which is going to be much quicker to deal with. And this was an issue that arose after a dealer visit. And this just goes to show the importance of consistent dealer visits. I think this is just something that John noted on his dealer visit to Batesville. He was visiting a bunch of dealers in the Batesville area, and he went by White River ATV and discovered what I will let him explain to you, and then what we basically Joy and I and Michael discussed it and advised John to go visit back with Mr. Holyfield, who's the owner, and have a discussion with him about bringing him into compliance. But I don't want to steal John's thunder. I'll let him explain, since he's been the one that's been in person communicating with Mr. Holyfield on this whole deal.
Well, on the 30th of May, I was in the Batesville area visiting dealers, and Mr. Holyfield's dealership, this White River ATV. If any of you are familiar with Batesville, just across the White River, if you're going south on 167 on the left. So I go there and I see this furniture store. And of course, out in front of this furniture store, there's some little ATVs and scooters and some dirt bikes and things. So I went inside, got a hold of Mr. Holyfield there and asked him where White River ATV was. Well, it's right here. I said, in this furniture store. He said, yeah, I've been here for 4 or 5 years. And Scott had even brought it to my attention the last time we had a meeting, but basically I gave him a copy of Rule 4, which is our facility requirements. I told him that it appeared at the time that he is out of compliance. However, he had already been granted a license. So I felt like that was a little bit on us, and that I told him at the time that I visited, I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this to the director and we're going to look at it, do a little investigation, and we'll get back to you on a later time. Because when I was there, he had made the comment, well, I can put a wall here up and do this and do that. I said, well, before you go and spend a whole lot of money, let us look into this first to save you money and time. So I brought it to Daniel's attention. He brought it to the ad hoc committee's attention, and everybody was in agreement that while his license was initially granted under code, if I'm not mistaken, Daniel.
Correct. Yeah.
He sent pictures down, and I don't think the pictures were very telling of his business. So when I went back after the ad hoc committee decided that he needed to come into compliance, I went back to see Mr. Holyfield. And this building is rather large, and it's a discount furniture store that he's had for many years there. And talked to him about it and told him what the ad hoc committee decided that he needed to come into compliance. He was very forthcoming. He was very amiable to everything. I gave him another copy of Rule 4, and he said, well, I've got some property out by Batesville Municipal Airport, which is actually the south side, just south of this location for about 3 or 4 miles. And he said, I've got some buildings that I can put up there for office space or repair space, display space, and I'll just hire somebody to run the lot down. And he asked me, he said, well, what kind of a time frame am I looking at? So I had to make an executive decision. I just said, look, your license expires at the end of December. You need to come into compliance by the 1st of December so we can get all your addresses changed on your bond and your insurance and ready for renewal. So he agreed to that, and I gave him the card and told him to contact me, and whenever he got his facilities ready to call me, and I would drive back down there and do a site inspection again to make sure everything was in order. He was perfectly fine with it. And I was quite surprised. I thought I would get a little pushback, but nothing.
So, yeah, this was one that, obviously, this predates my time here. I think this was, when he was originally granted the license back in 2020 or 2021, back in peak COVID time. And I know at that time that they weren't in the office much, they were working a lot of remote. You know, I think on the original application, the photos he sent didn't really show the furniture store side of things. I think it was just kind of a little bit overlooked. But it clearly says in our requirements for a facility that you can't share it with another business that's unrelated to motor vehicles. So luckily, Mr. Hogan was amenable to doing this, and John's going to follow up with him once he kind of gets further along in that process. But my understanding from John, from him talking to Mr. Hogan, is that the facility has in Southside, which is basically Southside down there by the airport, will be perfectly adequate to be a dealership. So it shouldn't be a problem. But obviously, John will go back and do an inspection when that time comes, and before renewal, he should be in full compliance and should have an issue. Obviously, this won't be something that ever happens again, because anytime we have a new facility come up, new facility that we've never inspected before, our policy is we're always going to go out and inspect it. So it won't be a problem ever again, but I think that's what happened. Again, I wasn't here for that. It just kind of was a little bit of an oversight. Some of the photos were not very illustrative of the type of business it was. So, which just leads more credence to the need for inspection. So, but I think it will be taken care of. Mr. Holyfield seems sincere and he seems ready to go. So John will follow up, and once we have that new facility squared away and done with, we'll include that on a later meeting as just as a follow-up. That's kind of where we're at with that. So that is the update. And as long as you guys are good with that, that's why I had it on the agenda. I just want to make sure that the commission is okay with that plan, and just kind of have a motion to say, yeah, we'll move forward with that. And, you know, bring in compliance. That's the plan at this point. I think that would be the best thing for everybody. Please don't have to consider any other action.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve that, as long as he comes in compliance and John does the inspection in December, January,
Hopefully before that.
hopefully before.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the plan that has been of action, has been done, because it's business in compliance with, it's our motor vehicle rule. And that John follow up with it. And all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So we don't have to go back and approve all of that. I mean, we went through all that. We went through all of this. Right. All right. We're going to do 7 action items: a voluntary license surrender agreement for Lucky's of Monticello and Wood Tower Sports of Northwest Arkansas. Y'all have been sent that. Are there any discussion with this? Y'all need to say anything about it?
Wood Power Sports, didn't they just build a new facility there?
They've got one in Fayetteville, they've got one in Springdale, and there's one in Harrison.
Where Harrison?
Alexis, do you want to explain why?
The situation,
It's kind of unique. issue that came up here?
The situation with Wood Power Sport, before we moved over to ELP, they had 3 licenses. Once we moved over to ELP, all 3 licenses were added into the system. However, another member of staff went in and created a new license profile once the Springdale location moved about 2 miles away from where they used to be. So they were under the impression that since we moved our location, we needed a new license. However, since they were still within the county and they only moved a few miles, they didn't have to.
Statute says, as long as you stay within the county, you don't have to get a license.
So once it was time for us to go through and contact everybody to let them know that they had not renewed their licenses, we came across this license in our system. Which it was applied for around that time where we were first getting the influx of people into the new system. So we believe that's probably how it was overlooked, that it was a people to get licensed. But once we talked to them, they made sure their original 3 licenses were renewed, and they sent in a surrender because since there's 2 licenses for the same location, they only need 1. So that's what this is, just them getting rid of that duplicate license application.
Okay.
And they've also, I believe, already been refunded for that duplicate payment because it was an additional.
Everybody okay with this? We need a motion.
Motion to approve it. Second.
Been moved and seconded. We approve the voluntary license surrender agreement list, Lucky's and Wood Power Sports. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next one. The automatic technical blocks, please. That, no, I'm not saying that right.
I just say that.
Education grant.
So just to give you guys an update, that's the full list of the grants that you approved. And we have, since the last meeting, dispersed all of the approved funds out to all of the institutions. So this is the full list of the institutions that were approved and the funds that you granted to them. And the list on the back here is the ACES report. And if you'll notice, it's got all of them listed, all of their warrant numbers for each one. And the very far right column that you see there, it says encashment date. That is the date that each one of them deposited the funds into their account. So they all received, and of course, Margie and Alexis confirmed that all of them, that they got the limits on the phone too, but that is basically the proof that they deposited all of the issued grant funds into their account. So everybody received funds, no issues there. They're now all spending them. Their first accounting report for the grants that you awarded them is due on September 8th. So by the time we have the next meeting in October, there will be an accounting report one from all 11 institutions for you to review. Make sure that they're using funds like they said. I don't anticipate any of them will based on our conversations with them. So, but yeah, that's just to show you guys that all the money has been dispersed to all of the institutions, the programs, and they got it all, received it. It's been put into their account and they're using it to purchase the supplies and food. So.
And if you're looking at that list on the back of the encashment date, you'll see that that first line item has a warrant amount for 59,000. That is 2 warrants combined because it was for the same institution, but it was for 2 separate programs.
Yeah.
That's why there's also a blank.
Northwest Technical Institute, and are they in Rogers or Bentonville? Where they at? I can, and up there in Northwest Arkansas, there's a pretty large institution. They have multiple programs, and everything goes through the same county office. So, but that's actually for 2 different amounts there. The 2 amounts are shown in the next column. So, but they both got their institutions. They all have to go to the same place. So that's the way the Need a motion. Yeah, we don't need a motion. Just present it to them. The next one.
On the money that was distributed to the technical institution, I have been invited to Ozark when they install the equipment to see it, and anyone else, but they're getting the stuff in, install it, and I was gonna go up there, curiosity, because my field, we need more technicians. And so I was gonna make a trip up there to see what they got, see what they're using, how it's going. Anybody here is welcome to go. I'll let you know, when they got it tentative, if John and Margie, Daniel, Bell, any other commissioner, and we can meet up there, and see what the money went for.
Yeah, something.
I'd be interested.
Apply to it, yeah, to be great. Okay, next item. Their Tractor Supply versus the Express.
So this is the last investigation item we need to go over here. Save the best for last. So just as an overview, and you'll see Margie and John's joint report here. They have conducted 24 different site visits to 24 different Tractor Supply locations across the state. Okay, Tractor Supply has, what is it, John, 39 total
locations.
in the entire state of Arkansas locations. We licensed one because they bought old Orson Farms to work there that was already suitable facility wise to be a dealer. So we do license one supply state. But all these other locations that you're seeing on this report, they are not licensed to sell any new product. I will let Margie and John kind of present their report since they visited all of these locations. But I had them include photos of these units we're talking about in here, just so you know what we're talking about. And this is the reason why I included the Rule 5, which talks about specialty vehicles and what's exempt and what's not, and also the definition section of our statute where it defines what's a specialty vehicle, what's a motor vehicle, and what's an LSV, which is probably the most important part. But essentially, what we discovered through some site visits that John, I think initially, was it you or Margie that initially, was it you, Margie? I think Margie initially discovered this. And subsequently, through all these site visits, which they'll explain to you, they discovered this at multiple locations. But most important thing to remember is none of these locations are licensed. Right? And essentially, what they'll explain to you is a lot of these locations are currently selling brand new Maximo LSVs, brand new Greenworks e-bikes as well. And then I think there's a couple go-karts that John may have found, a couple of them too. But essentially, they're selling units that you have to have a license to sell. I'll let John and Margie kind of take it from here and explain to you what they found throughout their journey and travels all across the state to all these locations. But it's a pretty consistent theme. It's clearly a corporate strategy. It's not, the people at these locations are not. They're not dealership. They don't know. They're just doing everything. So, John, Margie, you want to explain the findings to the commission?
In June, on June 29th, which was Saturday, how this was discovered, I was looking for some rainbow jeans for my husband, and there's Tractor Supply in Malvern, and I drove up and I said, "Whoa, what is that?" And they had a Massimo MEV2X that they're selling for $7,000. And I walked up there and I looked at it, and they were more than glad to show me, that wanted me to buy it that day. And I said, "Do you mind if I take pictures?" And they're like, "No, go ahead. And I noticed on all the spec sheet that I took pictures, and it's, like I said, there's a copy in there for you guys to review. And it does show it does go 25 miles per hour.
And you or John explain why that's important, because of what the statute says.
Statute states that it cannot go over, what was it, 16 or
It's in,
80?
it's in the,
Yeah, the top speed on these Massinos is listed on the spec sheet at 25 miles an hour. The LSD statute says anything that goes over 20 miles per hour but less than 25 miles per hour is considered a low-speed vehicle. Clearly, this Massimo falls into that category. And if you look at the picture, you can see it has aggressive tires on it. It's got 10 inches of ground clearance. It's got a lighting kit. And I was like, Margie, I happened to go by Tractor Supply Company in Harrison one day when I was off, and they had two of these things out front. I just took pictures while I was there, and that's kind of how all of this got started. We just happened upon it. So I visited 14 locations, and there was only two of those locations: Greenwood, which is just south of Fort Smith, and Boonville, which is east of Fort Smith. Those two stores did not have anything there. Margie visited the majority of the Tractor Supplies here in central Arkansas. I think we had one store where they didn't have anything.
Was it B? I think it's noted. I think BB's the only one that didn't have anything. Everybody else had the Massimo, Racca, or the Greenworks.
Now, these Racca UTVs, I had run across these before in Springdale, Farmington, over in northwest Arkansas. Those particular units on their stickers with the same model number showed 20 miles per hour as their top speed. But you can see here in these photos, the same model number, which is the RGC1, shows a top speed of 25 miles per hour. And I think Jonesboro didn't have any stickers on it. Batesville, it was 25. So some of these are saying that they only go 20 miles per hour. Some of them are saying that they go 25 miles per hour, but they're the same model.
says top speed may differ too. State legislation.
Right.
And to build off of what John just said, a few months ago, I went on, I was riding along with Ms. Margie, and we stopped at a Tractor Supply Co. just because we knew that they had a vehicle somewhere else that was still just 20 miles into the golf cart. So we just went to check. And this was maybe a month and a half before this investigation started, and they had a Racca at the Tractor Supply right next to the Toyota. Same Racca as this, and it said 20 miles per hour. So it was something that we had seen in the golf cart, and then it turned into this.
Well, at the Springdale location, it said 20 miles per hour. At the Farmington location, it's just on the west side of Fayetteville, 20 miles per hour. Some of these say 25 miles per hour. So, and they're classifying this as an electric golf cart. Now, according to Rule 5, which is our specialty vehicles, there's a specific definition for a golf cart. And in particular, the Massimo, from its description on the website and its appearance, in Rule 5 here, it says, non-altered golf carts of the type designed and commonly approved for the use on all golf courses, having non-aggressive tread tires and limited purpose capabilities, with the design use limited to transport of persons and equipment such as golf clubs used in playing games of golf. I don't know about y'all, any of y'all are golfers in here besides Benny. I don't think that the average golf course superintendent would let you take this Massimo on a golf course. To me, this is a dual purpose vehicle, not only for golf courses. I guess you could use it if it was a cart path only, but to me, its intended use is for more than playing games of golf with the ground clearance, lighting kit, aggressive tires. I just think that goes a little beyond the standard definition. Most of the other places that didn't have these electric golf carts had this little mini bike that goes 25 miles per hour, made by Greenworks. And that seemed to be where the majority of them were at most of these locations that we went to. And there was one go-kart that I found, like Greenworks, that goes 25 miles per hour, and it was in Van Buren, which is just across the river from Fort Smith. That was the only location that I found this particular go-kart. According to Rule 5, there's supposed to be a specific horsepower rating to be exempt. After looking at the specs on this, I went to their website, looked at all their specs, there's no horsepower rating on this particular go-kart, so it's kind of hard to say whether it does or doesn't fit into that particular rule.
But the e-bikes are directly addressed.
E-bikes are directly addressed, and
Two parts.
the LSVs are definitely addressed.
So in your specialty vehicles, which again, as I said earlier, specialty vehicles are the vehicles that are exempt, that we don't regulate. Any two-wheel motorized vehicles having a top rated speed of 16 miles per hour or less, gas scooters, electric scooters, and cycles having a top rated speed of 16 miles per hour or less. You don't regulate anything 16 miles per hour or less. So that e-bike that goes up to 25 miles per hour, that's a motor vehicle. So, long story short, based on what John and Margie have found, and just from a historical standpoint, we clearly define the difference in our statute and Rule 5 between a golf cart and an LSV. LSV is clearly defined as something that's considered a street legal vehicle, which you can get licensed at VFNA and registered as a street legal vehicle. So probably license them as motor vehicles because they're street legal. And you know, if you go to Hot Springs, Village, or Northwest Arkansas.
Most people's never.
Yeah.
But young people, I swear to you.
A lot of people have them, and that is the difference. I mean, when we say golf cart, we mean just a golf cart.
Yeah.
Golf course, we're not talking about these LSV, 2B type vehicles. So, it's pretty clear, in the specs, in our statute, that these Massimos, especially the Tractor Supply selling, that is an LSV. There's no way that, so, and the e-bikes are also something that require a license as well. So at this point, it appears that Tractor Supply is in violation of the licensing statute in terms of selling through LSVs and e-bikes. I don't really, I mean, the go-kart, it's kind of a gray area. I don't know about that one, but the LSV, the e-bikes, they're clearly selling at multiple locations new products that require a license from the commission to sell and sell. And also a point, and another reason why I had Rule 4 in here for you guys to look at. And you correct me if I'm wrong, Mark and John, none of these Tractor Supply stores that you visited are meeting facility requirements. So they don't have a service and repair area. That's none of that exists. So not only would they, you know, not only do they not have a license, they wouldn't be able to get a license currently for the store because of the way our requirements are laid out. So the questions of the commission is, because this is obviously a Tractor Supply, it's a corporate, big corporation. How would you like for us as the staff to proceed with this issue? Because they're doing it at, I don't remember how many it was out of the 24, but it was
21.
Yeah, 21 out of 24 locations they did. Obviously, I didn't ask them to go to every single location because that's not necessary, but 21 out of 24 is a pretty hefty percentage of that they've been notified at all.
There is their corporate office.
We haven't notified them yet because I wanted you guys to be the ones to decide how we want to approach this, because again, you know, this is a different issue than an issue that Michael and I had to address with a small time guy, Conway, last year, who was selling stuff he wasn't supposed to sell. He was throwing the letter. He called a couple weeks later and died and said, I don't want to get in trouble. I'm not going to do it anymore. He wrote a letter back to us saying it was done and wasn't going to happen again. So that was the end of that. This is a different situation. And it's clearly a business strategy they would engage in. Now, it could be that they just think there's gray area and they just haven't really read the statute closely enough to know that
Can't sell these here. I have to know the asterisk on their TLP stuff.
Yeah,
Indicates that they're aware of it. So,
but of course, the problem with that is we do license a store for them in that home, so. Kind of hard for them to say, they shouldn't have any rules and statutes. So,
Not only that, but if you go on their website, a lot of the products that are available, other things have a master that relates to 6 states. That you can't purchase those. And we are listed as one of those states on there.
on their own website. Yes, but yet they're selling it here. So no, that's proof that they know they can't do that. On their own website.
Well, what is your pleasure? We know we're gonna do something. But it's how we're gonna do it.
I think we've got to make contact with the local office. Some kind of cease and desist.
Yeah, I was thinking this, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think the question that I would ask now that we've gotten a system in place on how we're going to, contact another large entity with multiple locations,
Right.
how we need to differentiate between those two. I think making initial contact in some way that is meaningful, you know, like first impressions are important, right?
Right.
So what's gonna be the most effective means of opening a line of communication with this large corporation that has basically implemented something at scale, like it has, you know, impacts over multiple locations and things like that. My thought process is, what's the most effective way to open? I don't know what that is,
No, I agree.
because I've never dealt with this company and I don't know,
Yeah, I agree.
you know.
It could very well be that one hand doesn't know what the other hand's doing.
We wanna,
With this hand, find
we
out.
wanna find the right person, one thing. We wanna find the right person
That,
in that home, you know, and how do we go about doing that?
Local vehicle, send a certified letter,
Well, we're gonna send
lay
it.
an outlook
Yeah.
to the corporate office,
Yeah.
ask for a response.
Nothing over in violation.
All right, and definitely put that in there.
that was gonna be my suggestion.
Yeah.
Was to send a certified letter
Yeah.
to corporate and just lay out what the investigation found and what the statutes say about this and let them respond and see how they respond.
and you know, like,
Yeah.
and like was indicated in the last, issue that we dealt with, you know, offering up a face-to-face, you know, meeting with someone who can
Yeah,
speak on what they're doing,
right,
why they want to do it, what they're trying to accomplish and things like that, and see where the communication is. I think that's an issue.
Because if they're doing enough business with it, they're gonna want to continue it. And then we're gonna be in the facilities problem.
right, we are.
And I guess the question is, if they carve out a piece of their warehouse and put a roll-up door on the side to it, just like they do for a truck, can they now make that,
Yeah,
can they call that a service department and come into compliance? You know, all those stores have warehouses of some description and size, somewhere they could probably carve out 100 square feet.
Yeah.
They could probably carve out 120 square feet of that building somewhere to call the service department. Figure out a way to get it into compliance.
We make a really good point, like, you know, if we get a hold of the right person and they want to have this conversation, now they're trying to get on their side of the table, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna have to think about a plan that they can implement in a minimum of 21 locations.
Yep.
And
And
so
is it economically worth it?
yeah, so we are asking, you know, we would be asking for a big lift, you know, granted, we'd have to consider about like what they did to get themselves in the situation. But at the same time, we're looking to solve the problem and reach out to folks like, yeah, there's probably a long conversation. So we'll probably continue one too, like they're willing to have it.
I'm a devil's advocate here. What does the commission do if they say, fine, well, we're gonna sell units that go less than 20 miles an hour, and all of a sudden, the manufacturer, Massimo, sends out all the PLB stickers for these things that say 19 miles per hour. But yet we know that the exact same model number in another state or another town is 25. At that point, I don't know if there's anything we can do. Because I mean, if I was Tractor Supply, that's what I would just go back to. That's not what it is to say. But this is the parameters. we buy enough from you, we need a new model number with speed that falls within these.
Certainly be the cheaper.
That's what I would do if I'm trying.
It'd be a big undertaking to create a service department, a parks department, though.
They would still have to do that. They would still have to bring
I mean,
facilities with it.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I think they would throw the towel in.
I think they would.
I do know the one in Benton, when I went by there, the guy at Benton told me, quote, we're selling these like hotcakes because everybody wants them because they're street legal. That's what he said.
And I think the fact that they're selling products made by manufacturers that is licensed, that's something that's on our side, because like for BRCA, I believe when the company that manufactures those just sent in their information, they listed that as one of their products that they're manufacturing when they sent in their information. So we have the information for that, so it's not like they could be like, well, actually, because you're licensed to manufacture them, no, to license.
LSVs have always been a bit of a gray area because of what I was talking about. Remember talking the same about this stuff. Closed this. They've sold, closed sold some that don't quite meet that LSV threshold too, which Michael, right, we can't really say anything about that because it doesn't meet our definition. The way that speed is. Threshold, so.
That gets about the facility and everything, that gets about the whole.
Exactly. If they don't meet our definition, they don't meet the statutory definition of what speed is, and it's still can be considered a golf cart, then that is. Probably. So. That is kind of the gray area that we've dealt with in the past. I'll also say in the past, just for conversation, the same. Looking over stuff and crack supply and others in boxes. To this point, I've been doing to invest in services. It's one of the generally done. Licenses.
It's also going to change their insurance.
Yeah.
Or job insurance.
So,
They start working.
Maybe that needs to be added to the tech.
It opens up a whole other box.
Did, when you went and looked at these units, did you notice any, tags on them that had age limits? Because the CSPC, they regulate me,
I think
what size I'm selling to what age, and Michael will run in the same thing what he's selling.
No part of anything.
They send out secret shoppers.
Secret shoppers. Make sure we're not telling them.
yeah, I didn't see any
I don't
tags
know
on
if
any
they
of
were
them.
showing.
For age limit?
Age limit.
Supposed to have that on there.
It's not anything else they're gonna like.
I was gonna say,
Have safe travels, sir.
yeah.
that's right.
I gotta be there.
Okay, so do we need a motion or what, do you understand what we want to do or?
I think I understand that you want Michael and I to work on the letter.
Right.
So it's
Right.
over to open up the dialogue. It's
Yes.
essentially where we're at.
There's, you know, that's. the
We don't
first
have
step.
a good enough.
It's gonna take a tech.
Yeah, that's right. Is that all right? There's-
I like that, take their turn.
Good call.
Was that- Yes,
I'll make a motion. We then, like, contact trash supply. That'll work this issue out.
second,
Second.
moved and seconded that Daniel and Michael, work with the corporate, sending them a letter to let them know specifics of what we need. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
All right. So that one final thing. if you would.
All right,
So really quickly, this is just.
we understand. You need to go.
Either, you can go ahead.
Oh, that's fine.
So y'all make that.
Right.
Yes. So the last item.
Let's not.
The last item on the agenda is another request to waive late fees from Sal Motor Company, their distributor. This is for last year, for them and the rep. So this was one that Alexis and Margie have been in contact with, what's her name, Margie, Miss Patty? Patty Tal, so. We discovered that they did at some point last year attempt to renew the old fashioned way like some of the other people have in the past that we showed you guys, and she was able to find the shipping label in the original application and the check that they sent. So I don't know if this was just sent back to them or if we just didn't get it, but it was sent to our address. So they did actually, and this was sent back in May of 23. So they did actually attempt to renew on time last year. And this was an invoice that Alexis had sent out for late fees for last year. So they're basically just asking you guys to waive the late fees for last year's renewal for the distributor ones, because they, like some of the other ones that we've already presented in past meetings, did actually send something in and send that they're paying them and try to do it on time. And I don't know what happened with this packet of information, it just got lost somehow. But we didn't have it in my original files, so it wasn't in that original packet. We had you guys approve several meetings you guys approved. So this is just kind of a follow up on that. But I think they did everything they were supposed to try to do, and they did eventually get on the system and move it right away. So we're just asking you guys to wait.
And how much were the late fees? Yeah.
They were 400 $1,800.
We need a motion on that.
Yeah, we just need a motion to waive the full amount.
And we
Did it get lost here, you feel?
I guess so. I don't know. I don't remember seeing it, but they have a tracking receipt for it. So.
The motion.
Moved and seconded that we waive the late fees for town labor. Inc. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
You think we'll have a meeting in September?
I think we'll have a meeting in October now that we've scheduled it.
Well,
A hearing for October. I think we're
Get
good.
it together. All right, gentlemen.
No, we haven't adjourned yet. We're close.
We need a motion for adjournment. Or do we just adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second is.
Moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Everybody, the boss, no.
Thanks, Clay.
Thank you, guys.
But
Bye-bye. Yeah.
Someone could bring that 48-degree weather. Next meeting, that'd be fantastic.
Gregory.
It's October, it's a big spot.
A little better. Jimmy?
Thanks, everybody.
Jimmy, can I travel back to?
Well,